Well, I know, but then that doesn't, so because I think
you like
he's
it to
representing-
match?
He was running. Okay, I will now call this regular City Commission meeting of Monday, July 20th to order. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We begin, as always, by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. And with that, I will now go to our roll call from Sarah, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Ness,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Commissioner Bomer,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Here.
Commissioner Funk,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. Now we'll move on to announcements from the city manager.
Just to say that 1 year, I'm a sentimental person, and 1 year ago, yesterday, the city commission appointed me interim city manager, and I'm very grateful to be here, and that's all that I've got. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you.
Yes, we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're permanent now.
Yeah, thank you.
No getting away. And Sarah, announcements from the city clerk.
Okay, it's a little hard to follow that. So meetings scheduled for this week are the Complete Streets Advisory Committee will meet on Tuesday, July 21st at 8:30 a.m. in the second floor committee room. The Planning Commission will meet on Tuesday, July 21st at 6 p.m. in the commission chambers.
Great, and just, I wasn't sure if you'd touch on it, Ben, or not, but next week we will not, sometimes we have a fourth study session, we do not this month, and because of the elections, don't forget to vote in the primaries, we will not have a meeting the first week of August either, because of our policy to give the clerk's office a little breathing room to prepare for the elections and the very long day that goes along with it.
Which we very much appreciate.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
So our next meeting won't be for 2 weeks, just to let everybody know at the top, so nobody shows up here on that first week of August to an empty room. But you should still show up to get ready to vote. All right, so with that, we'll have Sarah go with the consent calendar.
Sure. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, the staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission. And such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration of approving the minutes of July 6, 2026 and July 13th, 2026 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of authorizing the issuance of 2 additional bar permits and 1 additional member, David Butler, to an existing redevelopment liquor license with Class C privileges with outdoor service area, banquet facility, and dance entertainment permits to Identity Brewing Company, LLC, located at 108 South Union Street, and authorizing the city clerk to issue such registration, which is a housekeeping matter. Adoption and approval recommended. 3, consideration of authorizing the issuance of additional Sunday AM/PM sales, outdoor service area, direct connection, and specific purpose permits to existing retail off-premise and retail on-premise special act liquor license with Class C and SDM privileges to Cherry Country Cafe and Gift Shop, Inc., located at 727 Fly Don't Drive, and authorizing the city clerk to issue such updated registration, which is a housekeeping matter. Adoption and approval recommended. 4, consideration of authorizing the issuance of an additional outdoor service area permit to an existing redevelopment liquor license with Class C and SDM privileges with Sunday AM/PM sales permit to Perry's Place, LLC, DBA The Flying Noodle, located at 136 East Front Street, and authorizing the city clerk to issue such updated registration, which is a housekeeping matter. Adoption and approval recommended. 5, consideration of authorizing the issuance of new retail off-premise liquor license with SDM privileges with Sunday AM/PM sales and outdoor service area permits in 5 additional members, Dorothy Wolf, Eric Wolf, Jerry O'Connell, Ryan O'Connell, and Shelley Burnett, to an existing redevelopment liquor license with Class C privileges to Northern Hospitality, LLC, DBA Mama Lou's, located at 149 East Front Street, and authorizing the city clerk to issue such registration, which is a housekeeping matter. Adoption and approval recommended. 6, consideration of adopting to make permanent traffic control orders, which number 775 reduce 15-minute loading zone spaces from 2 to 1 near 101 Park Street. Number 776, install 1 15-minute loading zone at 237 East Front Street. Number 777, install 2 no parking theater exit signs at, I think I'm missing a number, 35 East Front Street. Number 778, revised parking meter zone downtown, Old Town, and West End areas. Number 779, install 3 15-minute loading zone signs at 202 South Union Street. Number 780, install 1 U.S. Postal Vehicles Only sign at 100 North Union, and rescind traffic control order number 357, which would remove 15-minute loading zone space at 111 West Front Street. Adoption recommended. 7, consideration of waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing a contract for South Union Street Bridge Rip-Rap Scour Protection Project. Approval recommended. 8, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the 5-year agreement for parking management software services for credit card reader replacement and subscription fees, and consideration of authorizing a purchase order for the credit card reader replacements. Approval recommended. 9, consideration of authorizing a storm sewer maintenance contract which provides the terms and conditions under which the city maintains the stormwater system within the MDOT right-of-way of Grandview Parkway and M72 within the city's corporate limits. Approval recommended. 10, consideration of authorizing an agreement for construction engineering services for the West Side Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project. Approval recommended. 11, consideration of authorizing an amendment to the agreement for uniform rental and laundry services for the Department of Public Services, Department of Municipal Utilities, and Parking Services. Approval recommended. 12, consideration of clarifying the quantity identified in the motion previously adopted, authorizing a 3-year agreement for cardiac monitors for the fire department, which is a housekeeping matter. Approval recommended. 13, consideration of authorizing amendment to the amended and restated lease agreement with the City Opera House to allow the direct sale of liquor by the City Opera House Heritage Association instead of a third-party vendor. Approval recommended. 14, consideration of authorizing a budget amendment to the Downtown Development Authority TIF 97 annual budget to align with budget information previously presented, which is a housekeeping matter. Approval recommended.
Okay, would any commissioner like any item pulled? Seeing none, would any member of the public like an item pulled? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission for a motion.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
Perfect. Second. Thank you, Commissioners Funk and Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, that's been a while. Thanks for being so straightforward, staff. All right, moving on to old business. We are doing the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and this was so quick, I haven't even opened it up yet, so give me a moment. Is there any presentation with this, or shall I open them?
There
Great.
is
Okay.
there is a brief presentation that
Okay.
Ms. Hunt has, and I'll just turn it right over to her.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Michelle Hunt, the Director of Parks and Recreation for the city. And I'm here to give you a short overview of the master plan process, so please stop me if you have any questions. And I know this PowerPoint was in your packet, so I'll just briefly touch on the highlights. So every 5 years, we go through a master planning process. It's something that is required if we would like to continue to seek funding from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So our last plan we did during COVID, and it actually expired in 2021, and our new plan will be from 2026 to 2030. And so the purpose of the plan is to just provide a comprehensive overview of the parks and recreation amenities in Traverse City. So we prioritize capital improvements and asset management. We talk to the public, see what they want to see in parks, get feedback on what the investment should be. And then that plan gets compiled, and for the next 5 years, I will work with the Parks and Rec Commission and staff and the City Commission to implement those projects and the goals. So one of the biggest parts of the master plan is the public outreach and data collection. We hired a consulting firm, Tower Pinkster, to perform all of those duties. So they went to events where the community would be, the local community, the community that's here 12 months out of the year. That was a major point of importance for the Parks and Rec Commission as we were developing the scope, that they attend events where they're going to meet locals. So one of the events that they went to some high impact events that we have in the parks, like the Up North Pride event in September. They went to farmers markets, and then they were just here on various weekends, kind of late summer after Cherry Festival. And All the information, so all the raw data that we have for the community engagement, so the survey results and the mapping and everything, that'll all be included as appendices in the master plan. So it's not something that's available right now for what you've seen online. Once it's completely compiled at the end, that'll all be available. So we, as a Parks and Rec Commission and myself and staff, we wanted to, the strategic action plan was going along at the same time that we were doing this. And we worked to ensure that we weren't way over here whenever the strategic action plan was saying one thing. So we, in the past, there has been goals and objectives, and we changed that terminology to be pillars, to be consistent. And then we, when I say we, primarily the Parks and Rec Commission and staff, we worked to align that community vision with what the strategic action plan was undergoing at the same time. And we found a lot of alignment during that process. So our 5 pillars are community well-being and accessibility, waterfront conservation and protection of green space, local collaboration, and that's with the partnerships and the existing operations we have going on in our parks, connections, and maintenance and management of facilities. So take care of what we already have. That was a big one. And I touched on that already. So here's just diving into it further, how the master plan aligns with the strategic action plan. So some of the projects that came out of the master plan aligned with the projects that we had previously worked on for the Brown Bridge Parks Improvement Fund, because that was also going on simultaneously. And some of those projects are the Shoreline Restoration Project and like the Hickory Hills mountain biking, pickleball, and tennis court reconstruction. So these are all projects that people have been wanting for a long time. They improve the quality of life, they get people outside, they're connected to the outdoors, and especially with Brown Bridge and the Shoreline project promotes environmental sustainability. So our priorities are to, one of the changes that I advocated for in this plan was previous master plans had a whole lot of projects, and they weren't necessarily all easy to accomplish in that 5 years, and I've highlighted them in the master plan as I've accomplished them over the 5 years, but there are still some that haven't been completed because it's not necessarily realistic to get them all done. So our goal was create a realistic timeline with realistic goals that accomplish these things. They enhance accessibility, which was the Parks and Rec Commission's main focus when starting this, is increase accessibility to parks and public spaces, beaches being one of them. Thus born, the Shoreline project kind of morphed from there when it was, well, if we're going to do accessibility for the beaches, well, what else is needing to do at the beaches? And so these conversations, they all tie into each other. And that's one of the things that I'm proud of with this plan is it feels realistic. There's still going to be grants to apply for. There's still projects that will come up that are maybe just cause it to take a little bit longer than 5 years, but it is more attainable than in past years. And one thing that has come up during the process for the approval, so tonight we have the public hearing for the plan and then asking for the plan's adoption. I will be preparing a addendum as part of the master plan that will go in after the document, and it's going to include a parkland inventory. So that's a comprehensive inventory. I'm going to work with our city attorney, and we are going to supply that information to the city commission. We're hoping to have that done by the end of the calendar year, because it's going to be a lot of research, and a lot of the information is going to be, compiled for like the first time in a really succinct way. So we want to get it right. So that'll be available by the end of the year. And that's pretty much all I have. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer.
And I would say let's make sure we do questions because we do have to open the public hearing and then we come back to our regularly kind of scheduled program. So does anybody have just questions? Go ahead, Heather.
Is there a timeline on creating that inventory? I know I work better if I have a timeline. If I don't have one, it just goes off into the horizon forever and ever.
Yes, it would be by the end of the year. And we actually even included in the motion that it would provide that staff, but me present that parkland inventory by December 21st.
Great.
And it is comprehensive. It requires deed restriction, history, all that sort of stuff. And we want to make sure we get it right because, as we know, properties that are designated parkland are protected under our charter, and we want to be very thorough.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jackie?
Could you provide just a real top-line summary of some of the conversation within the Parks and Recs Commission, the pros and the cons? Ultimately, the vote was unanimous or not?
For the plan itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So we, as a Parks and Rec Commission, started this process a little over 2 years ago, and they were very active in creating the scope of work for the consultant and the projects that to focus on. So right out from the start, they've been very energized and excited about the process. And when it was appropriate and I had information, I brought it to the Parks Commission, and we had really good discussions and helped refine those pillars. So overall, there's been great support and alignment with, like I said, their goals. One of the main ones was the ADA accessibility, which is very important because some of our parks don't rank very high at all. So it was very collaborative, and it gives us a springboard for, future discussions. So I would say A+.
So in terms of pros and cons and whether the vote was unanimous?
The vote was unanimous for the Parks and Rec Board to approve
Yeah.
the plan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And were there any cons that were identified in conversation at that level?
Overall, there was, at the beginning of the plan, there was a more comprehensive want for the Parks and Rec Commission. We had originally come up with a scope of work that was more robust, but it got refined as, the budget had to allow. So there were some cons in terms of, man, I wish it could have been more in this category or more in this category and provided more information, but it just had to get scaled back a little bit. So I don't know if it's a con, but it's one of the rubs that we ran into.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I think we're all set with that. Then you can take a seat, Michelle.
Okay.
And with that, I will open up the public hearing on the Parks and Rec Master Plan. And Sarah will read the instructions and in a moment, as soon as your screen loads.
Click to the right screen. For public comment, we ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you're a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grant Parsons, 895 Washington Street, a city resident. I want to speak about, you're doing a great job of addressing parkland, the way we treat it in this town. It means so much, the parks, the green spaces. I want to address the specific issue of inventory. It's so important. What is a parkland in Traverse City? As long ago as 1986, I litigated the Bayview Mall litigation concerning what's now known as Lot B and T for Nimiak. We challenged whether that lot could be given, that land could be given away to a developer who was going to build a 6-story parking deck and a commercial development where the farmer's market is right now. I argued that case in front of Judge Forster. He ruled that land was parkland, and it had to be voted on by the city voters, and we won that vote. That's why the farmer's market is now there. Since then, there have been numerous park elections. I've litigated the Division Street parkland. I've litigated the Bijou and Fish Pass most recently. And in all of those cases, part of your inventory is going to come into play. Was it parkland? That's the key issue in each one of those cases. And I notice at page 50 of your inventory, it does not include Lot B or Lot T. Those are the only, there's arguments to be had about Lot T, but Lot B, it's the only absolutely judicially guaranteed parkland in Traverse City, but it's not in the inventory yet. All right, now I understand there are, so that's a key missing thing, because as it came up again in the Fish Pass Union Street Park Dam litigation, the issue started out, is that dedicated parkland? It kind of went beyond that in the Court of Appeals, but we spent a lot of time, and we had to come up with historical documentation of the status of that land. You know, as well as I, and I think Ben just mentioned that under Charter Sections 28 and 126, our city charter, which trumps everything, hate to use that word, but it changes everything. It requires special consideration if land is parkland. It requires a vote. And Lot B, Lot T, I'm not sure where the parkland is along Division Street, how that's identified. But the significance is that this city has ancestors that really, really valued, even when economic hardship was on us, valued parkland, made special efforts to protect it under Charter Section 28 and 126, and it has been litigated.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks. Any other comments on this item?
Yeah, Judy Nelson, 429 Garfield Avenue. I just want to say that I really support and thank you for considering doing the inventory and getting that started. We need that inventory for reasons that Ben and Grant have suggested. Parks are very important to the city residents, extremely important, and we need to know which ones have been dedicated versus not dedicated, what their histories are, what their deed, who gave them, or whether the city purchased them or it was reverted from taxes, etc. How did we get those parks? What's the history? And what can we, and from there, I frankly think we need to think about the commission dedicating those parks so that we're sure that they're protected and that the charter comes into play when somebody suggests doing something different with them. So I thank you for it very much.
Thank you, Judy. Any other public comment while the hearing is open? Please. Hi,
Hi,
Jesus.
everyone. Jesus Villa, Traverse Heights. I have I think it's a question. Well, first of all, I want to applaud you with this master plan because most of the master plans in any city just sits in a shelf. And in this time, it's like, hey, we have a strategic plan. Okay, let's align it with the strategic plan. Hey, we have OKRs, objectives, key results. Okay, let's also align it with those. But I think I have a question, and you don't have to answer it right now. I mean, I'm gonna send you an email anyways. So what metrics is the city gonna use, or are you planning to use any metrics of? So we have the master plan, but we have what the users and what the residents do in the city. So which metrics or in what timeline do you have to make sure that in a certain time we're going to match this master plan with the people is doing, I mean, that's the idea. Because, okay, if we're doing the master plan and the people is like, hey, we're not gonna use this park and it deviates, I mean, that's one thing. And 5 years is a lot. So it's just a question of thing to consider, how are we gonna make sure that the people follows the master plan, and not, I mean, or maybe the master plan will need to follow what the people is doing, so it's just like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Going once. I will now close the public hearing on the Parks and Rec Master Plan. If any commissioners have any questions, we can ask them now, or we can have a motion to open it up to Mitch.
Yes. Going forward with the inventory process and identifying what areas are deeded parkland, is the expectation that those designations align with the current park and or parcel boundaries, or could there be issues where it was set up at some point in time and since then there's been either a road encroachment or additional land was added, but that didn't have that didn't change the original dedication of what was parkland, and thus not only will we have to do the inventory, but we'll have to hire surveying work to figure out where those boundaries actually are.
Short answer, that's possible. I know I had a meeting with Director Hunt earlier this week, so we're going to take a look at all of those issues as well. Hopefully we can get to the bottom of what the initial dedication was, because that's really the key factor. The size, and if surveys are necessary to determine the actual parkland versus parks, then we'll recommend that.
Okay. Actually, Jackie, do you mind if I really quickly ask Michelle Jesus' question?
Sure.
Michelle, can I have you come up and just kind of, I know you explained that you went through a robust public input process to get where you are. We do have, this is a 4-year plan, and I know we've all talked about with other plans that about a year left, we check in on those and kind of start planning for the next leg. So can you kind of address Jesus's question of how you're going to be checking in throughout those 4 years and what kind of, how you transition for the next plan that will be coming up?
So one of the things that we did in starting this plan was looked at everything that was left over from the last plan and tried to evaluate, and actually had Tower Pinkster ask the public, like, hey, do you still want this? Like, how do you feel about that? So there will be the carryover of things that we haven't accomplished that we start to look at. I mean, we all know that the projects, you know, like the bathroom project Parkway took me about 3.5 years to do. So that was part of the realistic timelines in completing these construction projects. I plan to have check-ins with the Parks Commission, if not quarterly, then more than that, and just give updates and say, kind of like how we're doing with the Brown Bridge Parks Improvement Fund projects. This is where we're at, which I need to do that for July, which we will have that at the next meeting. So update the commission, update the Parks and Rec Commission on the status of these projects and let you know how we're doing on them. And that's public, and we would love for guests to come to the meetings, and then we can explain that too. So there isn't, I don't necessarily have like a rubric for it, but I think it's just about communication, because where we think we might be in July, we're not sure. So it would just be good to, you know, keep quarterly updates, I think, as I worked my way around to that answer.
Okay, no problem. And Jackie, your question?
My question had to do with maintenance, which
Yes.
I'm so happy to hear that that's an increasing priority. I wondered if there were any specific project examples of maintenance that, you know, is within this plan that you could share with us.
The tree canopy. So the urban forestry was one of the major considerations for maintenance, and how important our tree canopy is and how important our urban forestry program is to the city, to the residents. So focusing, we already do, a great job. We put a lot of focus on it, but it's one of those instances, it's a very important division within the Parks and Recreation Department that maintenance of our urban forestry canopy it's critical. So that was actually the kind of the driver behind focusing on maintenance, was not forgetting how important working on our tree work is in the department.
And so will that be receiving more funding, a revision of policies? Is there anything directionally that you could?
Those are discussions we'll be having internally, and then that'll be part of the budget process. And so that'll be coming to you with a next budget.
Next year. Thank you.
Other questions or a motion? Heather was first.
I move that the resolution for the 2026-2030 Parks and Recreation Master Plan be adopted, and further, that the city manager will present a parkland inventory by December 21st, 2026, and the parkland inventory will be added as an amendment to the master plan.
Support.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Shaw and Ness. Any further, now we can have open discussion too. Any discussion or questions?
I just, I think this was a good process and it was done the right way. Survey respondent answers are just baseline as far as public interest and concerns in relation to parks and anything in general. But this process, it was important to get it right, so it was slightly delayed. And that came from public comment and concern outside of the surveys and the members of the Parks and Recreation Commission. So I really appreciate that we delayed this to get it right, and that with the recommendation of the city manager, we're going to actually have a parkland inventory when this is all said and done. So we talk a lot about how the sausage gets made, and this is the right way to make sausage. So
Making sausage is never pretty, but yes. Any other comments? Go ahead, Heather.
Yeah, a group of residents has done a lot of work researching this inventory ahead of this, and I hope that Michelle and whoever is responsible for putting this together will be willing to take a look at that. They've done a lot of
Absolutely.
work. Okay.
Ask that they provide that to Michelle.
Okay,
Yeah.
And to be vetted by, Mr. Kelly's already got his first assignment here in his second meeting, so he'll be the primary on that.
Yes.
Lance?
Yeah, I just want to say that I am excited to see the inventory. Hopefully we can have maybe an interactive map with our ArcGIS would be really cool.
Yeah, that's great. Any other comments? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Looking forward to all of that, the plan and the inventory.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is the two-way traffic, and Ben, you can kick that off.
Absolutely. So at the February 17th City Commission meeting earlier this year, the City Commission reviewed the pilot findings and requested some additional information before making a decision, in particular cost estimates associated with a one-way or a two-way more permanent conversion. I say more permanent because the City Commission always has a prerogative to change that through traffic control order. The City Commission also asked that the newly created or recently created Complete Streets Advisory Committee look at the project and provide thoughts to the City Commission and to the City Manager. And you have those thoughts in your packet, and the public has had the opportunity to see them. And of course, Commissioner Bomer is the chair of that committee. I don't want to entirely speak for it, but their opinion was that two-way configuration better aligns with complete streets principles when compared to a one-way configuration. And so you have that recommendation from the Complete Streets Ad Hoc Committee that it be a two-way orientation. The city, I retained a traffic engineering consultant. You might remember earlier in the year, they reviewed the traffic engineer that was retained by the DDA. That individual's recommendation in both engineers have recommended two-way configuration, and as I said, your Complete Streets Advisory Committee. And so I think that's about all that I've got, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, or at least attempt to.
We have questions? Heather and then and Ken.
I do. So the costs that are in our packet here include the turning Front Street into two-way. Isn't that correct? And also the traffic signals that I believe are totally crucial to the success of a two-way on State Street, those aren't included either.
Ann, do you mind just speaking to the cost estimates? Of course, this scope is not at all intended to affect Front Street, but the questions, did you hear the questions or you want me to repeat them?
I think I have them.
Okay, great.
At least the first one for sure. I'm looking at the cost estimate for the first priority project. So there was like 3 different priority projects, and the first priorities were removing that island at Pine and Front. You know, that old, it's like a pork chop shape. That was a high priority because it's pretty confusing when you get to that intersection. And then the other was extending two-way operations on Front just between Pine and Union. And this came as a recommendation through the design team and also the DDA's engineer. But that doesn't have to be done right away. It's maybe something we can talk about further. So our highest priority was removing that island. And what was the other question, Heather? I'm sorry.
Traffic signals.
So I think that's in priority number 2. I don't have that in front of me, but and it doesn't require replacing the entire signal. It's just the light part of it, the signal heads, to add a left turn signal phase. So it will allow, I'm sure you've all been stuck there when trying to go straight and someone in front of you is going left and you can't get through. So this would allow a phase where there would be just a left turn signal in each of the east and west directions.
And that was recommended by the traffic engineer.
Correct, yes.
And where is that? Is that in our packet, these phase 1, phase 2 changes?
It is
is?
maybe one of the links that you need to click on.
Yeah, it's the link.
It's a link.
So there's a link from Benjamin's memo that if you click on that link to the February agenda
17th,
items,
Yep.
are you seeing that from the memo from February 10th?
February 17th.
Go into the meeting notes.
Oh, I'm sorry, the memo's dated February 10th. The meeting was February 17th. If you go to the very end of
Two-way
that,
traffic, State
I
Street.
want to say it's on page 58, but let me
From
double
Wade
check.
Trim.
Correct. is it a 69-page document?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you scroll way down to, starts on page 58. This is the memo from the
I
Progressive.
see it.
Okay.
Front Street and Pine Street, so that's number 1. State Street and Union Street intersection, number 2. Mid-block crossings and parking, number 3. And then more evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the motion that we're looking at actually cover?
The motion would just cover two-way State Street. It would, the motion is to make that two-way State Street configuration permanent until such time as it may be rescinded by future city commission action. And it's State Street between Pine Street and Boardman Avenue, and Boardman Avenue between State and Front.
And so that does not
Right.
include the new?
Not include front.
It does not include front.
Correct, it does
Correct.
not include front. It's
So
the
it's
traffic
to front
control.
as the intersection, not
And
to
does
Union
it
of Front.
include the traffic signal change? I mean,
Yes.
I think this is all kind of
That would be a
unclear.
future project
Yes.
to change the signals.
People are not going to be
Oh, no.
happy.
This is about the traffic control order. So what would happen after it was made permanent, then we can take actions. Right now, the other argument being made at the time, well, this has been a pilot project, was why would we spend money on traffic signals if it's a pilot until it's made permanent? So we're kind of getting into a chasing our own
Okay,
tail
well,
scenario.
hopefully it comes back right away.
There we go. Ken, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I guess it kind of aligns with what Heather had, what Commissioner Shaw had questioned, in that this decision has financial implications tied to it, and they all exceed the city manager's spending limit and require a 5-2 vote to support. So I don't understand, especially the fact that we can just rescind this if we feel like we want to for future actions. I think that traffic control has already expired. What?
Question.
My question is, I don't think that this recommendation is appropriate for this motion.
So,
That is, I will also just say, whenever the city commission has adopted traffic control orders, the expenses associated with them usually are handled subsequent to it being made permanent. And the thinking is, I'm sort of reiterating what the mayor said, that why would we do that unless it's made permanent by the city commission? And the commission can always, you can rescind essentially any traffic control order. I'm speaking broadly. There would be liability implications, but the city commission has that prerogative and that authority.
So I guess to my point is, if we support this as two-way, and maybe it's a 5-2 vote or a 4-3 vote or a 6-1 vote, it'll remain two-way. But if we can't get a 5-2 vote to support the funding to actually implement these changes, what's the point? So that's what causes me concern with the motion as it's written.
And I would just say it's two-way right now without those things, those elements. And so the typical course of action would be make the traffic controller permanent, if that's your desire, to have State Street be two-way in a permanent sort of fashion. And then we will come back with the expense. And then if that doesn't pass at the city commission level, then the commission has the option to either rescind that traffic control order or to just not include those elements if you didn't approve the expense.
and
Would
just,
be 4 votes to rescind the traffic control order, so it's not like a higher
Correct.
threshold.
and to just clarify though, if we did rescind it and make it one way, there's expenses attached to that as well.
Correct.
So either way, there's going to be expenses coming behind this decision.
That's right.
I think the returning it to one-way expenses were understood when we turned it into two-way. We knew we would have to potentially turn it back to one-way. That's an implied cost. This is, like, the two-way costs aren't implied. The one-way, returning it to one-way was implied when we turned it from one-way into two-way.
As a member of the body at the time when that decision was made, it was very much implied that either decision was going to cost us money. And
Fair.
so that
That's fair.
wasn't, the idea was, can we make this a better street? And yes, it's going to cost money if we keep it two-way by that way, and it will cost money if we go back to one-way. But I don't want to have our decisions previously summarized as we thought we'd be able to just kind of change it back and no big deal. And to see, willy-nilly how things were going to go.
I didn't think it would be no big deal, but I think it was understood that there will be a cost
Yeah,
regardless.
Regardless, yes. Other questions right now, or do we have a motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I have several safety-related questions, and perhaps there's some insights from the committee that has reviewed this already, but emergency vehicle access within the context of the bumper-to-bumper gridlock that we're experiencing without these traffic light modifications. How do emergency vehicles get through that without any additional lanes or space?
I believe, is our fire chief here? I saw him earlier. Okay, he left. I will tell you that the fire department, I can't answer that question specifically, but I can assure you that the fire department has representation on the traffic committee, and it recommended two-way.
Okay. I'm concerned about safety for bicyclists as well as pedestrians. I've received some reports that the two are sharing sidewalk space, not very happily and not very safely. Was that part of the evaluation at this point?
Are you asking that about the Complete Streets Advisory Committee or for the traffic
Both,
engineers?
all of the above. Anyone who's reviewed it.
We did talk about it at the Complete Streets Advisory Committee meeting, and not necessarily about, I've never heard of anybody being on the sidewalk, which would be against the rules of downtown on a bike, but there is a bike lane on the street. However, we acknowledge that the street necessarily isn't complete in either direction. And much like most of our streets in our city. And so there was some looking at the bike lanes and potentially how can we move the bike lane inside parking as a potential experiment in the future, but nothing was set in stone other than the fact that we need a traffic control order for us to actually make some recommendations, because other than that, it's just kind of guessing what the commission's going to do, right? And that's just, I'm the only commissioner on that body, so I actually went last in the voting on this, and so everybody that was there voted first before me on this.
Okay, so are we anticipating that if this is approved tonight, that then there will be a subsequent approval of expenditures to modify traffic lights and consider some of the solutions that the Complete Streets Committee discussed? And those will all be next steps, and the timing on those might be, how long do we live with the current congestion, I guess, is my
Looking
next
to
question.
Ann or Harry Burkholder, the DDA director.
Harry Burkholder, Executive Director of the DDA. That's a great question. I don't know if we have an exact timeline. We've had some recommendations lined out as priorities. So it would be a conversation that the DDA has with the city in terms of timing of said improvements or modifications and then the funding that goes with it. We had talked about if we went back to one way and made that decision, we couldn't do that work until after the summer into the fall anyway. So there's some timing and logistics and then funding considerations that go into that decision. It has been the kind of the will of the group to move forward, though, with something in a timely manner.
And just to clarify, and then I'll hand it back to you, Jackie, but when you're talking about the funding and the DDA being involved, that is with any potential TIF funding and other funding that comes from the DDA. It is also in the TIF plan that will be coming up for a vote. That's on one of our next agenda items to have money allocated for that. If or when TIF does expire, then that would be handed over completely to the city, right, for payments and for the cost of all of these changes.
Right.
So you're involved, DDA is involved in as much as they're going to help fund it. If that funding mechanism or there is no more money to fund it evaporates, it goes strictly back to the city instead of a partnership, correct?
That's correct. And
Okay.
we do have funding already approved for this fiscal year to address some of these improvements. And then the DDA has pledged in this next fiscal year to continue that operation until it's satisfactorily met in terms of those modifications by the direction of the City Commission.
And just to underscore what Harry said, just so it's clear that there wouldn't be any improvements made this year because there's simply not time. So I just want to manage that expectation if you do move forward with this.
Okay. Thank you for that
And
clarification.
thank you for letting me clarify, but go ahead if you have more questions,
Just
Jackie.
one more safety question, and it has to do with, was there an evaluation of sight lines relative to parking for people trying to enter State Street, other than at intersections? I mean, there are a fair number of private parking lots and public parking lots, so there is a turning
So curb cuts?
into, and I wondered if that's been taken into consideration and whether the sight lines are adequate for safety.
Those are all things that traffic engineers have a professional and ethical obligation to analyze. And so I put trust in that's their profession, and they are, there's high standards for their review as professional traffic engineers. And I don't just say professional lightly, they are certified in that area.
Was it included in their report?
I
Did I
don't
miss it?
recall if it was specifically, that element was specifically included in the written report.
I'd have to go back and look at that, but in terms of sight line between egress and egress, we had some considerations, so there was a parking space removed on the parking lot entrance on State Street right before Cass. That was part of this discussion. As part of the initial iteration of this project, we actually removed parking spaces on the Pine Curve as you head westbound for those sightline considerations. So those have been integrated as part of these discussion and as part of these recommendations.
Okay, and those would be affecting traffic lanes as opposed to, like parking lot. Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, I guess I would say this goes to what we had, the conversation when we did 8th Street, is private parking lots and such are not we have the right of way, but we don't have control over the curb cuts. So we did it with ours, so.
It was more in reference to parking space decisions, which I presume are public.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Lance.
I'll make a motion.
Yep.
All right, I move that the traffic control order 703 allowing two-way traffic on Pine Street between Front Street and State Street, on State Street between Pine Street and Boardman Avenue, and on Boardman Avenue between State Street and Front Street be permanently adopted.
Second.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Lance. And
And I
further
have,
question? Oh, go ahead, please,
I
Heather.
don't have a question anymore. I want to say that I concur with a lot of the letters that came in. The West End has totally changed. There's so much housing going in down there. If we were to turn State Street back into one way, it would be sending everybody, I don't know, into their neighborhoods. It would be pushing traffic back onto Front Street. And Front Street is crowded already, and we just passed how many bar liquor licenses tonight? 6, 5? You know, those sidewalks are really crowded. We're allowing all these places to have seating on the sidewalk. It'd be really nice if we didn't have so much parking on Front Street. I would like to see that. But that certainly couldn't happen if we turned State Street back into a one-way. I also, I don't think that State Street, and this came up a lot when we were putting together the advisory board, the Complete Streets policy, that State Street is probably not the best way to get across town east and west. It's too car-centric. So I think that we need to look at an alternative route. You know, you come in on Washington, that's, if you're coming from the east side, that's our way to get across, but by the time you get to Cass, you're just kind of hanging out there. So I hope that we can look at that in the future and come up with a better route for bikes. And so much of the success of this depends on getting those left turns to work and getting that traffic to flow smoothly. The more frustration we have on that street, the more people will say we did the wrong thing. And so I hope that comes back to us right away.
Well put. Other comments? Go ahead, Ken.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Is that for me? I wrote down a little bit, and I want to read it just to kind of share my thoughts on this, because this has been a long debated topic and discussion. Reasons that we did this. Year 1, to relieve construction traffic due to parkway reconstruction. Year 2, look at the impact of two-way traffic on the economic impact of State Street businesses, downtown businesses, but we also gathered some traffic flow data. Year 3, gather more data on the economic impact and more traffic flow data. What did that data tell us? No noticeable changes in economic impacts, minimal improvements to pedestrian safety, and minimal decreases in vehicle speeds. Those speed decreases and minimal safety improvements are just as easily contributed to gridlock and congestion from roads operating in opposition to how it was designed. Prior to the February meeting, when the direction of State Street was last considered for a vote, staff was not in consensus in regard to what to do with that decision. Our city manager did not feel comfortable making a recommendation either. The experts and consultants will tell us that changing to two-way supports best practice and modern trends. But how many times have we talked about neighborhood and community integrity? Should we be making major changes to our city and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars that we don't need to just because everyone else is doing it? I will argue that there was nothing wrong with the way our downtown loop operated 3 years ago, and why should we change it if it comes at losing part of our small town charm that makes Traverse City special and not just any place USA? One of those regular comments that I hear people say is that they don't even recognize Traverse City anymore. Why, as a commission, are we contributing to that notion? Now, as the mayor referenced earlier, 8th Street, I all want us to think about the 8th Street between Woodmere and Boardman Avenue, and whether you like the current configuration or not, how that process developed the current environment and configuration. A need for major underground infrastructure was identified, and an opportunity to repair the road was aligned, along with appropriate funding mechanisms. Public input was collected, and the intention of helping to produce a community and multimodal finished product was developed. Why are we looking at State Street any differently than this? Why is there a push for this patchwork approach to make it work? Because that's what I heard a couple times tonight is, let's just pass this and we'll figure out how to make it work. We're going to try and make it work for two-way traffic to be forced into an environment that it wasn't engineered or created for as its intended use. This feels like scraping the frosting off a cake and putting something different on it. When this isn't a cake at all, this is a road that has underground infrastructure needs and real costs that come at the expense of taxpayer dollars. Reductions in lane sizes, traffic light configurations, creating turn lanes, adjusting bump out sizes, and parking spaces are going to require more money than a return to the safer original one-way design that the road was designed and engineered to be. I'll just wrap this up with this. I shouldn't say that, I'm sorry. The progressive study recommends the implementation of Front Street for a two-way traffic, which I have heard but not been officially told is off the table. Why is that? In 1967, after the last one-way versus two-way argument, the residents of Traverse City put together a ballot referendum and permanently designated Front Street as one-way. Since that time, Front Street has been named one of the 10 greatest streets in America by the American Planning Association. Do we want to be anywhere USA? Do we want unnecessary changes just because everyone is doing it? Do we want to spend taxpayer dollars on change that isn't necessary or justified by good data? Or do we plan and implement a process that takes into consideration community input through a thoughtful engagement process that has a focus on multimodal transportation and is responsible with taxpayer dollars? Do we prepare a surface project with an underground infrastructure project that incorporates stormwater management, new freshwater and sewer lines, and aligns with our strategic pillars? All that said, every little bit of that, I don't disagree with State becoming a two-way street if it's done right. This is not the right way. What we are being asked to do here tonight, in my opinion, is not the right way to do this. We should do this like 8th Street.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Ken. Laura?
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate the historical framework. I think that was likely helpful for lots of people who maybe haven't followed the back and forth of State Street and Front Street. But I think we do need to acknowledge that a lot has changed downtown over the last 4 years. We don't have the same traffic patterns or the same downtown flow that we had 4 years ago when this change was made. And back in February, this commission asked for two things. We asked for a recommendation from the newly convened Complete Streets Committee, and we asked for an outline of what the costs would be. We now have both of those things in front of us. And I think at some point we have to stop moving the goalpost. So we have this information along with a recommendation from the city's retained traffic engineer. That's a professional that understands all of these issues related to safety and sight lines and traffic flow and what's the best recommendation for State Street. And I think as policymakers, our role is to weigh the evidence, weigh what's in front of us, despite our personal opinions of how we like to drive, because I know my opinion on how I like to use State Street may be different from the final recommendation, but I think we have to give significant weight to the recommendation from the new Complete Streets Committee. I think that's really important. This is their first recommendation of a committee that we convened and we put together, and the technical experts that we engaged. So for those reasons, I'm prepared to support this recommendation, and I'm confident that we will do this right based on what staff brings back to us for the traffic light configuration and the other changes that have to be made for State Street.
Anyone else right now? Mitch?
Yes, I would also like to thank Commissioner Funk for his insightful analysis. When we had this initially brought before us, there was, yes, the issue of how do we account for congestion with Grandview Parkway being closed, but there were a number of other potential benefits raised. Increased foot traffic on State Street, increased commercial development on State Street, less cars circulating looking for parking spaces, more people that were parking in one place and then walking to multiple locations on both State and Front. None of that has been quantified in any way that compares State Street to Front Street, or that looks at the trend lines pre-pandemic and how we have bounced back. Yes, there's been increased growth in pedestrian use and increased development along State Street, but we knew when we started this project that there were a number of parcels that were up for sale or already in development along State Street, so it would be entirely predictable that we'd see increased commercial use, regardless of what happened with the traffic configuration. But we haven't seen data that people are circulating the block any less, or that people are, as was raised before we started this project and again after this, the degree to which two-way versus one-way affects people going into and out of the neighborhoods as alternate through routes. I mean, I can see that there seems to be more traffic going down State Street east of Boardman, but I don't have the data to support that because I am not a traffic engineer. I have not seen that in the data that we've been given. Have there been disasters? On a broad scale, no. And you can look at the slight decreases in speed and other metrics of safety and say that we've made progress. But we were sold this on a number of things, and I don't feel that a lot of those have borne out yet.
Thank you, Mitch. Lance?
Yeah, I just want to, we got an email earlier today, 8:36 a.m. from a resident at the West End Lofts, and it really struck me. She said that she typically leaves the house twice a day on average, and it takes about 2 additional minutes to go around the entire block, which would be necessary in their vehicle if they, had to, if State Street was essentially one way, right? Doing the math, it was 24 hours a year of additional time burning fossil fuels in their vehicle. And then they noted that there's 90 units in the building. I think State Street has evolved significantly and is evolving significantly. And we need to think about the most efficient way to not force people to go around the block if they're trying to get to their home. And so that's just one reason amongst the many others that you've all heard me talk about why I'm supporting this.
So I wanted to take a second, and thank you for that, Lance, and say Really quickly, I wanted to address one thing that we haven't officially been told Front Street isn't off the table, but Front Street isn't part of this. That's as close to official as we can get. If somebody else wanted to bring Front Street in, it has to be a separate conversation. It has to be brought up in a separate way. So I just want to make that clear because I think sometimes with all of that's been floating around for the last year and a half or so, we've heard it at DDA meetings, we've heard it here, this isn't going to get, if this stays in order, it doesn't mean that Front Street will be converted to two ways at all. That has to be a totally separate conversation. If that were to ever happen, and has been pointed out in historical record, there's some protections against that. So I wanted to clarify that because that has been conflated a lot over time. The other thing I wanted to say is this conversation I find in a very odd way, kind of delightful in a weird way, because I remember sitting in Charette's for 8th Street and having everybody say, this is terrible. This is a horrible process. The road is going to be terrible. There's all these bike people here that aren't listening to the neighborhoods, and then there's all these people from the neighborhoods who don't want anything to change, and it's going to be terrible for walking and biking. And now it's being held up as this great civic project that we did. And I think it has, as somebody who also benefits by living off of it, it has been a great result of a lot of public input and a lot of careful planning and processing. Now, where we had the advantage there, and I will say this, that charrette happened, I believe, just after I was elected for the first time in 2015. And I had in my brain of by the time I run for re-election in 2019, 8th Street will be done, and we'll have the loop finished on Boardman, and everything is going to be moving along. The 8th Street change opened 1 week after I was reelected in 2019. And so this idea that we had this charrette and everything happened and magically we had all this money just sitting there to go ahead and do the project all at once, that's not how our funding works a lot of the time. I think it's very fair for Heather and everybody else to say, look, what can we do? When can we have the traffic light come back if we do this? When can we do this? It realistically will take some time of bringing things back to the Complete Streets ad hoc to figure out how we're going to add some of these lanes, or can we take out some parking and put in some more bike lanes, things like that. I think that this is a bit of a trust, I won't say a trust fall, but one of those steps. I'm thinking of like, if anybody's watched Lord of the Rings, where you take the step and assume that the bridge is there even if you can't see it. Sorry, I'm being a nerd for a minute. But I think that this...
What season and episode are you referring to? 'Cause
Lord of the Rings. The movie.
Lord of the Rings.
Sorry. Gandalf. But I think that it's not a huge leap that we're taking. I think it's just the way that government works. And so this does become that circular thing that Benjamin alluded to as well. Until this is permanent, we can't go for funding for some of these things. Until this is permanent, the Complete Streets can't come in with solid recommendations. We've had 2 traffic engineers weigh in. We've had the Complete Streets ad hoc weigh in. And I will say that everybody keeps talking about this having been done a few years ago because of construction, and that was it. But the actual first experiment with this was in 2020 during COVID. And that allowed us to shut down Front Street during the summer and allowed people to walk down it. And I still, to this day, get so many residents and people saying, why don't we close down Front Street in the summer like we did that year? That was so great. And that's a totally different debate, too. But I think that that is another thing showing that if we adopt this and start looking at things, it's going to open up bigger conversations and possibilities as well, like potentially having more on-street, making all of Front Street pedestrian-friendly in the summer, or something else that none of us have even thought of yet. And so this is a traffic order that we'd be making permanent. We could also in 3 or 4 years say, look, money is dried up, there's nothing here. At this point, because we can't do what we really wanted to, a commission could say, let's change it back to one way. But this is what we're saying, this passes tonight, we're saying, this is what we're willing to explore, but not have it as a pilot. This is what we're really, truly willing to try and commit to and move forward with as a city. And so that's where I wanted to add a little bit of the perspective, because I appreciate the acknowledgement of 8th Street being a lot of input and a lot of effort and a lot of money, and it was. And I think that that could be the result of this if we can do some more input and things as we're gathering for some of the information and trying to get some of that funding to complete what the Complete Streets ad hoc is looking at and our bike and walking community as well. So I just wanted to add that little bit of perspective from the time in the trenches. Go ahead, Ken.
I will just say that you made a great statement about why you should support what I said. The idea that we have to turn this into 2A before we can figure out how to make it work, I think is the backwards way of doing this. That is irresponsible with money. And I think that the right way, it's understood that the study data says modern trends, all these different reasons, a recommendation from our Complete Streets Committee. I appreciate it. I very much appreciate it. We need to do this the right way, and the right way is to create a plan, implement the plan, obtain the community input sessions. I think that's what's going to make this successful instead of saying, nah, we're just going to change this because we want to.
Well, as somebody who's classifying my words for me, I'm going to clarify a little and say the whole point of this was until we make this permanent, we can't take any of those steps. And so that was the impetus of what I was saying and how we got to 8th Street the way we did. So if we say no to this, we're not making it permanent. Why would we invest money in studying something if this isn't permanent? Why would we invest any money on making it better? It would just go back to being one way and people can get doored by cars again. So I appreciate where you're trying to go with that, but I'm also going to say that I think that if we're going to have a plan, we have to have a traffic controller, and that was part of what I was saying about the process there.
We've said a lot about how the traffic controller can be rescinded at any time.
Yep.
And
anything we do can be rescinded at any time.
I understand that, but I think that argument does not support that we have to do this before we can do any planning.
Mm-hmm.
We can plan to redo State Street, and during that plan, we can have the discussion of the curb-to-curb reimagining of the traffic flow directions along with the multimodal integrations. That I believe.
Oop, that was not intentional. I guess I would say if we go back to one way, though, we are going to be looking at how do we make it one way. We won't be looking at the complete street anymore. We won't be looking at other alternatives. That's what we'll be looking at. And so that doesn't lend itself to having this. Or we're going to be asking taxpayers to pay for money for a study for a street that's been designated to turn one way that we're now thinking about changing back to two-way again.
This whole process has been very messy. I will not disagree with that at all.
Sausage.
Yeah, this is going to be a tasty one for sure. So I really don't have anything else to say.
That's okay. Others? Go ahead, Jackie.
As I listen to all of this input, I'll tell you that I came in prepared to support permanent conversion to two-way. And the more I listen, the more I'm thinking that what I'm being asked for is a trade-off between short-term pain for long-term gain. And where I stumble is that there's no timeline associated with that short-term pain. You know, the more I hear, and I'm listening to Commissioner Treadwell talk about, you know, our lack of metrics and data and, you know, quantitative results from this pilot. And we're talking about funding availability, and we're talking about how long it will take to have safety for pedestrians and bicyclists on State Street. And I'm losing faith that we're going to get there and that we're going to just live with short-term pain. And I'm sorry to share my anxiety with you, but this does not seem like a well-organized, progressive plan that is going to come to fruition.
Thank you,
That's
Jackie.
all.
Thank you for sharing. Other comments right now? Seeing none, I will open this up for public comment. If you have any public comment, please feel free to address us at the podium. Line up if there's a few people who want to do it.
Noah Roth, 309 West Front Street. First, I just want to address, I think this process, like we've said, is a very iterative process, and this is the first step in that. And as part of the Complete Streets Committee, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to review this and give input, but there are multiple things that, as you have all said, we do need to take next steps on, and but we can't do that yet until we have this traffic order, and that's why this is important. And so I also just want to iterate that when we look at any sort of street, it's always part of a complete network. And so we were reminded of this back in April when we had all the flooding and South Airport Road was closed. And we felt the effects of that on our local traffic system. And even though we weren't directly impacted by that, we still felt it. And that's because all of our roads together make one larger network. And State Street is no different when it comes to downtown traffic circulation. And so when we talk about bringing State Street back to one way, we're affecting all of downtown circulation. And when we talk about bringing it back to what it was 4 years ago, as we've said, downtown is very different than it was 4 years ago. And so all of the development on State Street and all of the development in the west end of downtown relies on this being two-way now in order to get around downtown efficiently. And so when we're looking at going back, we're going to have effects all over downtown. Front Street, for example, we're going to have an increase in traffic on Front Street if we go back to one-way. We're going to see all westbound traffic funneled through Front Street, and Front Street is our most active pedestrian street in the entire city. And so every single car that we send down there is one additional opportunity for a conflict between a bicycle, pedestrian, or driver. And so, if we go over to like Union Street too, we're looking at all of that development that's going on in that west side of downtown. When you look at the apartments that have gone in, the apartments that are going in actively, and especially the potential parking garage, this is hundreds of daily trips that is using this two-way street, as it is right now. And so if we look at how traffic would flow in a one-way configuration, all westbound traffic would have to flow through that Union block. This means those two intersections on Front Street and State Street, that's hundreds of cars, additional cars that are having to turn left, hundreds of additional drivers having to make a conscious decision of if that crosswalk is clear or not. We're adding all of these variables in that don't exist right now in the two-way configuration. And they also didn't exist 4 years ago because downtown is so fundamentally different at this point. And so I would strongly support moving forward from this point with the two-way configuration rather than going back, so we can finally start to have these conversations about all these potential improvements that we keep throwing around and talking about for months on end, and actually getting shovels in the ground and making these safer streets happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Reed, Traverse City resident. It doesn't matter if it's two-way, one-way. The traffic gridlock that was mentioned, that happens every summer. And it's not in that area. It's just, you can go from Pine all the way down to Division. That is full of traffic. And that is gridlock certain parts of the day. Traffic does not disappear. It does not go anywhere. And that's just how it is. So no matter what changes you do, summer traffic is going to be here. It's going to be gridlock during certain parts of the day. That's just how it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Any final thoughts? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
No.
Commissioner Funk?
No.
Commissioner Boomer?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, sorry to stop and think. All right, we'll now move on to the TIF 97 verbiage. This has been brought back to us. Benjamin, do you want to kick it off, or do we want to?
I'll turn over to the esteemed
Great.
city attorney, Mr.
All
Kelly.
right,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Thank you. So at the commission's last meeting, July 6th, you were presented with a resolution which is required under your charter and attempting to be consistent with the implementation policy at this commission as well. That ballot proposal identified that there would be a 70% capture by the DDA TIF 97 plan, and a 30% was identified as being a reimbursement. And there was a lot of discussion by the commission of whether or not that should be identified as a share back and how to identify that. Since that meeting 2 weeks ago, there's been a significant amount of input, comments by residents, input by residents, staff here at the city, as well as at the agenda review. I prepared a revised resolution that really is consistent almost word for word with the commission's implementation policy. And in order to accomplish that, so we basically took out the reference to 70%, 30%. And in order to be as consistent with the policy as possible, we only identified that the capture of the DDA would be the 70%, which is actually incorporated into the plan. That was the first significant change. The second significant change is the policy, as well as the charter amendment, requires us to come up with a projected total capture by the DDA. And as you know from the previous meeting, there was a lot of discussion on what is the percentage increase that should be used. There was a conservative amount of, I believe, 2.4% per year for the 20-year period used in the previous resolution. This resolution actually adopts the historical increase of approximately 7%, so the number has significantly increased. And that's what the resolution that's in front of you here today. It simply states that there is a collection of 70% of the capture, and that total amount is on a basis of a 7% per year increase over the life of the 20 years.
Do you have questions for Mr. Kelly right now? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Heather.
That the resolution approving ballot language for a tax increment financing TIF plan, which schedules a ballot question asking voters if they approve or disapprove of the Traverse City Downtown Development Infrastructure First and Development Tax Increment Financing Plan for the November 2026 election, with the ballot wording as outlined in the resolution submitted with the packet materials for the July 20th, 2026 meeting of the City Commission, as provided for and consistent with the amended city charter and City of Traverse City implementation policy for Charter Section 28 TIF amendments, which acknowledges placing this proposal on the ballot is a ministerial action, be adopted.
Second.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That is a terrible.
Ken, did you-
I was gonna say support, but I think Lance got it.
Okay, we'll let you find out. But thank you very much, Heather. That was a Herculean task.
For an editor, it was
I don't know,
a
Sarah-
painful task.
Yeah.
Sarah does a pretty good job at our consent.
She does. Okay, do we have any further discussion on this? Go ahead, Heather.
I do. I would have preferred to see the number rounded up to the next whole number, because I think that better represents the nature of an estimate. But if there's no support for that, I am perfectly happy to accept it as is. I think it's a satisfactory. The ballot language is now totally satisfactory as far as I'm concerned, except for that one little thing.
Okay, Jackie and then Lance.
I'd like to second that and say that I think this is a very good faith attempt to create a realistic estimate based on our experience over the last 30 years. And the clarity of the language, the clarity of the thinking, I think is going to allow voters to make good judgments. So thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah, I would just say that thank you for your ability to listen to us and update the language based on what you heard in the feedback from the last meeting. I think this is a good compromise.
Ken, were you putting your hand up?
Commissioners and community members alike had concerns, and the concerns were addressed, and I think everyone is supportive and in agreement that the language is appropriate. You know, that was our goal when you see the newspaper. Are we doing questions or are we doing comments?
The motion's been made, so you can make
Okay,
comments.
thank you. I lost that
No,
for
I
a
know,
second.
I was distracted.
When you read something in media and it says that commission doesn't support something, it doesn't tell the whole picture every time. And the important thing was we had to delay this so that we could get this right. Our responsibility was to make sure the language on the ballot for the voters was as appropriate and accurate as we could possibly get it to, and that's what we wanted. That's what the delay came from. We're talking about sausage last night. We're making better sausage, just like with the Parks Master Plan. You know, we're taking the extra steps and the time to do it right. So I appreciate this process a lot. Thank you.
Well put, Ken. I appreciate you talking about, that's a very good point about taking the time to do it right. Thank you. Laura?
So I'd like to echo the comments that have already been made and thank everyone who worked so hard in making all of these revisions and really taking the time to get it right. It's our responsibility to place this before the voters in a way that's clear and fair and objective and easy to understand. And I believe that this language accomplishes that goal, and we got it right.
Any other comments?
Am I sensing that there's maybe consensus to round that number up?
I think it's good.
I think what's
Mitch says
What we
no.
have in the motion.
I do understand that the zeros at the end may be more reflective of an estimate, but I think that I'm content with it, just the way it is right now, so we can get something voted on and get it on the ballot.
Okay. Seeing no other comments right now, I'll open up for public comment on this item. Any public comment on this item?
Again, Jesus Villa, Traverse Heights. I have a question, so I'm gonna vote no for this, for the TIF election. But I have a question. Like, okay, what happens if like everyone votes like against? Like, do the city has a plan? Because I mean, what I'm thinking right now is that like the city wants this to get approved, but like, I mean, because the DDA, I mean, Facebook, TIF is good, blah, 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 but what about, no, I mean, the city, like, has any independence analysis that, like, will, like, release, or, you know, are you gonna campaign? Like, because, I mean, without this TIF, I mean, they will owe a lot of money to Beta, NMC, the library. The thing is, I just found out about this because I read something and investigated, you know, but not everyone knows this. You know, there are residents that still, and I'm still confused, like, wait, like what happens if we both know, like, I don't know if the city has like any plan or is planning on releasing, like, you know, because I mean, 0% to 30%, but like last week we were talking about a stormwater fee and then the pavement, there's no money for, or well, like snow removal, the deficits, you know, and there's money going to 300 people, residents, 315 residents in 140 acres, so, you know, so it's a no-brainer for me, but I would like to see like if the city has something to say, you know. And I know you're not gonna say, like, hey, vote this, but like at least I don't know, a flyer, a paper, or something, you know. And that's it. That's my concern. That's my wife's concern.
Thank you, Jesus. Any other comments on this item? Oh.
Judy Nelson, 429 Garfield Avenue. And I support the ballot language that you have. I would have preferred 140 million instead of 139,900 and whatever it is, because I just think it's easier to understand, but it's okay. I think I do thank you for taking the time to get it right and for actually doing what the implementation policy says with the projected total value, et cetera. I do want to sort of point out that we need to stop saying shared back, refund, reimbursement. None of that is accurate, and we need to get this campaign and what we tell the voters accurate. The DDA doesn't own that money. That money is the millages that go to the taxing authorities. They own that money. And the DDA is not refunding it or reimbursing it or sharing it back. So I just think we need to stop. We need to watch our language and find a way to really say instead that the DDA, that the 30% is the money that originally was intended to go to those authorities and will still be going to those authorities. I don't know if I'm making that clear or not, but that's my point, that we need to really be careful about the language.
Thank you, Judy. Any other public comment on this item?
Here, DDA's attorney. Just wanted to read you a section of the Tax Increment Financing Act, which is section 214, and underneath that portion of that section, pardon me, subparagraph 4 provides that the authority can enter into agreements with the taxing jurisdictions and the governing body of the municipality in which the development area is located to share a portion of the captured assessed value of the district. So the statute itself provides that money is shared. So just, I would advise to continue to look at the statute when you're looking at these interpretations of how the plan adoption is supposed to move forward.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'm going to say, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back just to help. Jesus raised a couple of good points. We do not campaign as a city or as a DDA. Both Benjamin Marentet and Harry for the DDA and city addressed some of the financial implications during the budget discussion. So if you go back and watch some of the budget meetings, that is discussed in those meetings. So just wanted to clarify that. Okay, bringing it back. Mitch?
Yes. To echo some of what you said, our role is to, in accordance with state law, our city charter, and our own policies, to pass language, since now we have a proposed TIF, creation, modification, or extension. This is a modification/extension, so it does meet one of those criteria that has put forward an effort to get on the ballot as required in our charter, and now we have to evaluate language for fairness. After extensive discussion 2 weeks ago, we have language that is at least more consistent with other language used. Is it fair? That ultimately comes down to individual voters. I could argue that using the same formula for projected revenues for a lot of millages is less fair to this, because this is a much longer span of time than, say, a 5-year millage proposal, and thus has a larger chunk of total money, especially towards the end of that, when, yes, revenues will be higher, but also due to the ever-present costs of inflation, everything that the city or the DDA wants to do, from trash collection to policing to road construction, will cost more as well. But this is the language that follows our own city charter, follows our implementation policies, is compliant with state law as best as we can know. And hey, it was a compromise between the people behind the desk and various interested parties in our community.
Thank you very much for that. And just, actually, I realized I crossed one thing out before I said it. Also, just wanted to clarify that the city of Traverse City collects all taxes and distributes them to either the DDA or our millage taxing jurisdictions. The DDA does not actually collect taxes at all. So just wanted to clarify that too as part of our answer. So with that, I will go ahead and call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Now on to our new business, Hickory Hills Recreation Area. Benjamin, why don't you kick us off with that, please?
Yes, I am. I'm excited to present this item to the City Commission. The city-owned Hickory Hills Recreation Area is a community treasure. It's aligned with multiple strategic action plan pillars, including building a thriving year-round economy, creating a complete community, strengthening placemaking and neighborhood character, fostering regional collaboration, and finally, and significantly, supporting environmental sustainability. The Hickory Hills Recreation Area, I want to point out, has received a lot of generous financial support from private sources in the millions of dollars over the last several years to make investments into Hickory Hills Recreation Area. I want to say that, like any park, Hickory should not be viewed as a break-even type of an operation. All parks need public taxpayer support, and I'll just say, for instance, we don't look at the balance sheet for the open space or F&M Park and those types of other parkland. With that said, since I became city manager, I've identified that the operating model that we have, in my professional opinion, despite good intentions, hasn't worked well. This requires thinking differently about how we approach things, and I believe it is our responsibility to one of our treasured community and park assets to do so. And the primary driver for my recommendation is to elevate the user experience and better honor the financial support, both publicly and privately, that Hickory has received. With that said, while this approach would, in my opinion, greatly enhance the experience and service level, it also represents an $83,800 decrease in city funding. That decrease in city funding could be even greater if additional revenue is realized through the incentive built into the contract. So at the end of the day, I believe this positions Hickory to better provide better and more service at less of a cost. The employee team and I did pursue a parallel track as we were approaching this winter season, which will be here before we know it. That was one, continuing with the same model, including hiring a Hickory Hills manager who would be a full-time city employee, along with other full-time, one other full-time employee, as well as other Parks and Recreation Department employee support. We do have 2 finalists for the Hickory Hills manager position who we've kept informed along the way. Or the other option that we've pursued in parallel is to try something new and bold, which would be to engage North Country Alpine Services, who I've already retained under my spending authority for a 1-month arrangement to help us tee up the next season for success. So we've projected, I'm not going to get into all that, but I will say Hickory presently has 2 full-time employees allocated. One is the Hickory Hills manager and one is a general union employee. If this approach is approved, I will not reallocate that FTE, that is the Hickory Hills manager, elsewhere in the organization. I would see that as double dipping. But the other FTE could be reallocated, and my intention would be to reallocate it permanently, or not permanently, but in a large way to our Parks and Recreation Department for deferred maintenance, urban tree canopy, which you heard about, and also potentially to supplement winter sidewalk snow clearing operations with a headcount that we already have. It is my strong advice, also supported by the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee, that we need the assistance of North Country Alpine Services to best position us for a successful winter season. This would be a 1-year agreement where they would also be preparing, as part of their scope of services, documentation to assist the city with pre-season, post-season operations. At that point in time, once we've had this experience under this 1-year agreement, which would go through April, so not really a full year, we would evaluate, do we want to continue with that type of an arrangement, in which case we would bid this out, though I will say at this point I know of no other organizations that are positioned to do this work. Or we could return to the former or the current model, or a hybrid of the two. But I want to also share that I reviewed this proposal at a high level with the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee, and it was supportive. I do think that we are at a point in time where it is absolutely critical that we move forward with this in order to position us for success. Otherwise, despite what Mother Nature decides to do, which we have no control over, I do predict that we'll have some of the similar operational issues that we've had in the past. But either way, we need to either move forward with this recommendation of mine, or I would move forward with filling that Hickory Hills manager position. I believe my recommendation is the better option. And that's all that I've got for now.
Do we have questions for Ben? Go ahead, Heather.
I do. So I gotta get back up to the top here. So we are going to save $83,000, which is gonna go back to the general fund. Right?
Correct.
And we're also gonna be able to reallocate $190,700 in Parks and Rec Department to go into maintenance and other things.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So
190, yeah, yes.
190,
yes.
Yep. So the North Country Alpine Services will retain 80% of revenue over $512,000. So that means if I look way down here at the budget on
Page 5?
It's way
Oh.
down in here.
Oh, with,
I think it's in the proposal.
okay.
Yeah, it's in the proposal. I had it and now I've lost it. Oh, no, yes? Yeah. So that includes payroll and taxes, and those are all the things that we're paying. We're paying them, plus all these other things. And the estimated, well, the annual budget is $512,000. So anything that goes over that number that I just said, which I
The
can't remember now.
512?
So they get to keep 80% of the revenue. Is that how this is working? We are actually paying all these things, $512,000, which includes their operation fee.
Correct.
And anything that goes over that, they get to keep 80%.
That is
But
correct.
we are also saving money on the other side.
We're also saving money, and we get to keep 20%. They're incentivized to enhance revenue operations, and we're looking to them for guidance and recommendations, along with the wonderful support of the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee on further enhancements. For instance, I'm excited about the idea of a tubing run at Hickory. It is not only exciting and fun, but they are revenue generators, which can further assist us with elevating the experience and potentially reducing that subsidy.
I have one more question. A letter came in asking about marketing for Hickory Hills for the lodge, but isn't that part of the agreement we have now with
with the special event coordinator, and that agreement does go until May of next year.
Okay.
And then if we continued with this arrangement, it's likely that that part of the service would be absorbed by North Country Alpine Services. We'll just see how it goes.
Thank you.
Other questions or a motion?
I can make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that the competitive bidding process be waived and that the mayor and city clerk execute a professional services agreement with North Country Alpine Services with the terms as generally outlined in the city manager's July 16th, 2026 communication, and also supplemented by the proposal as included with the official meeting materials for the City Commission's July 20th, 2026 meeting for the operation of the city-owned Hickory Hills recreational area with funds available in the Hickory Hills Fund, with such agreement subject to approval as to its substance by the city manager and its form by the city attorney.
Second.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Ness and Commissioner Shaw. Any further discussion on this? Mitch, and then Jackie, and then Laura.
Have through the whole hiring process for the manager, and now that we're down to 2 finalists, those candidates have been appraised that we could be going in an alternate direction.
They have been by our Human Resources Department, yes.
Okay. Jackie?
Use of North Country Services obviously represents an entirely new business model for Hickory. And I wondered, in terms of evaluating various scenarios, was there a worst case scenario presented and evaluated, and what might that have looked like? And what's the downside here? What risks are we looking at in addition to the benefits?
Sure, and I'll ask Michelle Hunt, our Parks and Recreation Director, to fill in any gaps here. But the model assumes a certain amount of revenue, which is what we built our current budget on. So it's not really a shift in that regard. The risk is, and I don't see this as a risk, really a compelling one, or I wouldn't be bringing it forward, is it's something very new. It's the city moving away from the traditional approach of it's our employees running everything, but they will be accountable to the city. And if there was an issue, and let's say mid-season it just wasn't working out, we will be all hands on deck and making it work the best that we can. I don't see a compelling downside. I mean, we thought through this critically. Again, the revenue, the overall financial picture could not be as rosy if we have terrible weather, meaning, well, some might call it great weather, but not good weather for skiing and making snow. So it could be that the financial performance, if you will, and I really don't like to look at parks in that way, but just because we're talking about this, could not be as great. But it is still based on, the entire model is based on what we had built the city budget on, using city employees. And I do want to point out that by not filling that Hickory Hills manager position, not only is that the immediate savings that you see, but we're not incurring the legacy costs associated with a full-time city employee.
Sure.
I hope I answered your question okay.
Yes, if I could ask a follow-up. And I should probably know this from the budget process, but how does the assumption for revenue going forward compare to actual revenue from last year?
I'll ask Ms. Hunt to address that.
So revenue from 2025-26 was about 360,000. And the revenue projection for this upcoming year is about 419,000. And then especially when evaluating this proposal, the key was, to the point that Benjamin brought up, is to look to the future for the revenue potential. And that is going to happen more than likely in the subsequent years if we continue with this model. So year 1 could look different than years, 3 and 4 once we get our feet under us. Is that helpful?
It is, thank you.
Great. Laura, you were next.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this proposal because I think it has the potential to represent a bold new chapter for Hickory Hills. And Jackie, to answer your questions, I think that this proposal is low risk and high return. After last season, we all know we experienced delayed openings and we had equipment failures and ongoing operational challenges. I think it became very clear to those of us who are up there quite a bit that we needed to start to think differently about how we operate the ski area. And as the city manager said in his cover memo, if we continue to do the same things, we really shouldn't expect a different result. And our community deserves better than what we delivered last year, and I believe this proposal gives us the opportunity to deliver that. And just remember, every winter night, we have the equivalent of an entire elementary school scattered throughout that park. It is truly one of Traverse City's largest parks, not just in terms of acreage, but also in terms of use. Why do I think this makes sense? Operating a ski hill is a highly specialized area, especially with today's challenging climate issues and the related shortened seasons. Rather than asking city staff to become ski area experts just because we decided we want them to be ski area experts, we have the opportunity to partner with a local professional whose passion and experience are operating successful ski areas. And this will allow the city to focus on governance and oversight while experienced operators focus on delivering an improved experience for our residents. So again, I'm super excited about this. I view it as low risk, high return, and I hope we move forward with this proposal.
Here, here. Thank you. Any other comments? Jackie, then Mitch.
I have been fascinated to see Traverse City Tourism participate in some recreational facilities in the area recently. And I just wonder if there is any opportunity to engage them at Hickory also.
Could be a good way for some success for the new person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that point.
Mitch?
Yes, I understand why Hickory Hills has decided to go this route as recommended by the advisory committee. But I am disappointed, as I often am, when I see something that had been handled in-house and then going now to a private contractor. Yes, they may bring more expertise and qualified experience to handling a specific task, like with our wastewater treatment plant. But it also has at least the optics of removing a layer of accountability. They are not direct city employees that are at that hill that are ultimately working in a city park and accountable to the voters. Do I expect mismanagement? No. I think that the contractor has a very good presentation before us, and it will likely be an improvement over the management scheme. But it is something that I am concerned about and feels it diminishes it as a city-owned and operated ski hill, which is a rare thing even in northern Michigan.
Just one thing, if I may respond, with respect to the level of accountability, I just want to respectfully say, and I don't mean this to be, I don't have the right word, but it's actually, in a lot of ways, I see it as being this arrangement having more accountability and easier to make accountability-oriented changes, because frankly, if we have an issue, it's a lot easier to terminate a contractor than it is a union employee, for instance, or a city employee in some regards. So I just want to, I don't like going there, but that is the truth.
Laura?
I'd just like a chance to respond to Mitchell, and I am sensitive, Mitchell, to a big change like this in terms of culture, and Hickory has been one of our city parks for 75 years, and we're coming up on that anniversary this year. But Hickory remains a city-owned park, it's going to remain a public park. The city will continue to own the land and the facilities. It will approve the rates and the policies. It's going to oversee the contract, and we will hold the operator accountable for performance, as Mr. Marentet indicated. What changes is who's managing the day-to-day ski operations. And we've contracted with experienced professionals to provide specialized public services in other areas, and really this is no different. And so I'm excited about the potential for this change at the city park.
Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of a little over a decade ago when the county decided to stop running its own pool at the Civic Center and contract with the YMCA, which, yeah, Easling Pool still exists. You can still go swim there, but the rates have increased. Open swim times have gone down, and there have been a number of people that are less happy with how that operates. On other things, for, say, the line painting on our city streets, we are looking at how do we bring that back in-house. For trash collection, that is something that historically was city employees, but for many, many years now is a contracted service. But do we always have the level of service that we want from that? It's always a balance of what our resources are and what we can do.
Just to clarify some potential misunderstanding, though, Hickory Hills is ours. Even if there's a contractor running it, the contractor will not get to pick the pricing. That is still voted on by the city commission, and that is very different than what happened with the county and how the rate fees. They handed all of that responsibility over. That is in no way part of what's being proposed right now, and I want that to be very clear for the public to understand that we are not handing over that duty of ours to anyone else. We, at the end of the day, make that rate. And the staff advises, but at the end of the day, the 7 of us vote on what that becomes or doesn't become.
Correct.
So don't want that to go like wildfire. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Oh, any public comment on this item, please?
Hello, Tim Pulliam, 516 West 11th, city resident, also Hickory Hill Advisory Committee member. I'm super excited about this. I love Hickory. I'm there almost every day, all of the seasons, hiking, biking, skiing. I know North Country Alpine Services. I've worked with them on and off for a number of years on all sorts of projects around the Midwest. Good guys, local, and probably most importantly, passionate. They absolutely love skiing. They love winter activities. And it's great that we have a whole team of people that love Hickory as much as I do that, definitely plans to hold them accountable. But at the end of the day, waking up every day and loving what you do is probably the best way to keep yourself accountable. And I really believe that they'll be up every day, and they'll be making sure that the pumps are ready, that the snowmaking working, that the rope tows are safe, and that the children have an awesome place to come and experience skiing the same way my kids did. So I'm super stoked for it. And in a year, if we don't like it, it's not that hard to change. So I know they have a lot of support of the community. They have both our support as the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee, but also the business that I operate in town that handles things. I'm very familiar with what they have to do and how they need to do those things. Things like the snowmaking pumps and the freak drives we had problems with last year. I'm confident that they would have been right out there that night and having that stuff fixed. So excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other comment on this item?
I'm Molly Stanifer. I live at 615 6th Street, so I'm a city member. And I am a board member of the Grand Traverse Ski Club, who provides that affordable accessibility of ski youth programming. We bring the 400 of our community youth to the hill. So we have a good relationship with Hickory Hills. And I simply want to say on behalf of the club, we strongly support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Wilkins, city resident, 610 North Madison Street, also on the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee. I support the concept, the model to bring in this consulting firm to take a look at a very complex issue of managing the ski hill. The devil is in the details. I know the city staff will do their best to work out the details, and as a prior person said, if we need to renegotiate in a year, let's do that. But I think we don't want to hesitate moving forward on this proposal. Second thing I have to say is marketing. I absolutely appreciate all of your service and the positions that you're in, but I don't think any of the commissioners or the mayor would be where you're at without active marketing. A passive website isn't going to get you where you want to be, and we've been very passive as far as our marketing effort to the Hickory Hills Lodge. I'm bullish on the Lodge. It's a great venue, and it should be utilized a lot more. If we can somehow team up with Traverse City Tourism and get them to help promote a dual beneficial operation where we're filling hotel rooms for destination weddings and utilizing a great venue for the Lodge, we need to do that. But marketing is it. And there is no line item that I see for marketing expenditures right now. So like I said, you wouldn't be there unless you know marketing and you know the importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Good evening, Rod Kivel. I'm an East Bay Township resident, but I am also been acting since 2011 as the patrol director for the volunteer ski patrol at Hickory. Last year, our small patrol is all volunteer. We put in 541 hours, joined amongst us. Over the last 10 years, we've put in over 5,500 hours. We are bullish on this too. We want this to happen. I look at this more of a proof of concept. And I think as we've all talked and heard, these things can be changed, they can be administered, that type of thing. But I've been there a lot of days, not every day, but a lot of days since 2011. And after the last couple of years, we've got to change our way of doing things. So again, the patrol is well aware, our volunteers are well aware. I've provided them with a full packet, and our patrol supports this thought and look forward to it. We're going to come across probably some things because there's some interaction, some liability with the volunteers, that type of thing that we've got to make sure we cover. But I think that otherwise we support this in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for you and your team's time.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none then, Ben, I know you wanted to address one of the comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to, with respect to marketing, I agree that we've been very passive. And that's part of the reason why we engaged a special event coordinator who has a marketing budget and also is incentivized to drive up the use of the lodge. And same is going to be the case with North Country Alpine Services. So we definitely can do more, and that is absolutely the intention. And I do like the idea. I'm just going to say I appreciate the idea that's been shared about TC Tourism, so thank you.
And really quickly, just because I know that people are saying for a long time, when was that, when did we retain the event planner again?
Within the last couple months?
Yeah,
May.
so, yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was May as well, so give us a little time to ramp it up, but it's heard loud and clear, and we have already engaged someone for that, so just wanted to clarify. So, all right, with that, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Yep, and now our last item, I gotta get this off my screen, for new business is a request from Commissioner Anderson to issue a recommendation to the City Commission about regarding ADUs. And so, Jackie, do you want to kick that off?
I will, thank you. This is simply follow-up from our last regular meeting where we approved use of the Attainable Housing Program tax incentives for small landlords. And there were a couple of follow-up items as a result of that endorsement. First, that we request the Planning Commission to review and make any recommendations for updates to our current ADU regulations and ask that they get back to the City Commission by September 30th. I was pleased to see that it's already on tomorrow night's Planning Commission agenda. they're on top of it. And then the second portion was to simply reaffirm our support as a commission and request a timely action in exploring pre-approved ADU plans that might expedite the process of having these small landlords who we are incentivizing to be able to actually economically move forward with development. So those are the two aspects of this item. I hope it's appropriate, and I'm happy to relay any information to the Planning Commission if you have comments for tomorrow night. Yeah.
Question, go ahead, Lance.
Do you, I love this, first of all. I think it's great to simply reaffirm that we want this to be done. And we all know that there's around 2,200 units that we are lacking in the region. But September 30th, do you think that that's too fast for the Planning Commission? It was my only question was like, is that a little quick?
I was surprised at how substantive the packet information was on that topic already.
Okay.
So I think that it's aligned with the priorities of the Planning Commission for 26, 27, and so it was sort of on the radar, but I think this has maybe elevated it as a priority a bit. And but I think in terms of just an evaluation of where we stand currently and suggestions, I think that's a doable time frame. Aggressive, but doable.
Laura and then Heather.
Yeah, it's aggressive. It's almost August. September 30th is right around the corner, and I'd like to see this set up for success and give the Planning Commission the time that they need to come back with a recommendation that they're comfortable with and that they've done their due diligence on and that they've had plenty of time to contemplate and ask questions about. So while comfortable with the topic, I'd like to see the deadline extended.
Did you have a suggestion?
End of the year.
Heather, you were next.
End of the year. Maybe by November or something. But I agree. Let's give them a little time. But I totally support this. I'm a big Strong Town supporter, and Strong Town says if you want people to do something, smooth the path. So we've done all this upzoning, hoping that developers will come along and provide affordable housing. And unsurprisingly, in this market, it hasn't happened. I think the plans, the pre-approved ADU plans is a great place to start, but it's not the whole picture. It's not only that we need plans, but we also need construction is very expensive and permitting is very expensive. If we're going to commit to this sort of bottom-up kind of infill, which is supporting the people who already live here to add housing to their properties, then we should consider pairing these free ADU plans with waived or reduced fees. I don't know who does that and who would be responsible for it, but particularly for long-term rentals. I love this question from Strong Towns. Who builds your town? Is it Sox or Midtown or Eastwood? By providing these plans and some relief from the permitting structure, the answer to that question would be, we build this town. Take a look at Port Angeles, Washington. They have done this.
Good. Ken, did you have your hand up?
No, I
Okay.
did not.
Mitch?
Yes. I would agree that September 30th is a bit of a, well, more than a bit, is a very tight timeline, and I would suggest going back to the end of the year. This is something that was on our timeline already. I feel that I understand where Commissioner Anderson is coming from in putting this on our agenda, but it is already in the master plan. It is already in the Planning Commission's goals. So to suggest that it wasn't on the calendar as, hey, this is something that we are working on, it is there, it just has to fill in with everything else, which right now our planning department is down our planning director for the next few days, and there will be some transition as he comes back to the office. But it's not just that, but the planning department is embarking on the process of rewriting our zoning code to make it a little more internally consistent, but that is going to be a big project. And the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Authority is embarking on a new master plan, since our last one was in 2009, and yes, it's been updated since then, but the Commons has changed a lot since 2009, and that requires a very extensive rewrite process. Yes, we have outside consultants for that, but it also will represent a significant workload for our planning department staff. Can they still do this? Absolutely, but it will be something that I think the end of the year is a more reasonable timeline to make it happen than just September 30th. I agree with Commissioner Shaw that this is one tool, but it would be more effective if it's paired with waiving permitting fees or other costs that are associated to the extent that we can. Unless we are outlaying funds from our general fund to pay the county, we can't waive county building permit fees. We could choose to go that way, but that gets even more complicated. Yes, other communities have done this, but the biggest barrier to housing is the cost of building in the first place. Permits and architectural review is part of that, but it's a smaller part. I will be interested to see how this unfolds, though it does run the risk of what I think is one of the greatest parts of our current ADU policy, which is preserving neighborhood character. In our current language, any ADU has to be a certain percentage smaller than the principal residence on that same parcel, and it has to reflect the same architectural styling of the principal residence. If we have pre-approved plans, then it could be, yes, it could be a very nice looking ADU, but it could be larger than a small 1 or 2 bedroom house in Traverse Heights that's going in next to. And it could be something that doesn't match at all a brick or stone house that is going behind on Boardman, in Boardman neighborhood or Central neighborhood. So we'll just have to see how this process unfolds.
Hold on, before we get too in the weeds on this, the motion here is to recommend this to the Planning Commission, where this discussion will happen, and it will be brought back to us as well. I've heard some consensus that September 30th seems like too soon with everything else going on the Planning Commission. So if somebody would like to make a motion with a date in it.
Do we have to make a motion with a date in it, or can we discuss the date? We've said by the end of the year.
I'd like to have it opened up and with a date, and then we can always amend it, because we are kind of getting into a lot of discussion here. Knowing that also it can be done before that date. This is just a drop dead. So for a motion.
I can make a motion.
No, motion.
Motion first, then discussion?
Please, yes.
Yep. I move that the City Commission approve a request to the Planning Commission to issue a recommendation to the City Commission by December 31st, 2026 regarding any proposed changes to accessory dwelling unit ADU regulations/ordinances, and to create a proposal for development of pre-approved ADU plans in support for the element of the City Manager's OKR work plan approved by the City Commission calling for such plans.
Second.
Thank you for that, Lance and Laura. And now we can start the discussion. I think we're all kind of moving in the right direction. So Ken's had his hand up, then Jackie, then Lance, is yours up?
Yep.
Okay.
Initially, as part of my questioning and wondering about this, a planning commissioner actually made the recommendation of September 30th, so I wasn't dismissive of that regardless of how aggressive it may have seemed. Another commissioner from the planning commission said that they did think it was aggressive. So I'm comfortable with the overall consensus of giving more time. December 21st is our last regular business meeting of 2026. That's what the date I would have suggested rather than the 31st. Nobody's going to be in this building the 28th through the 1st, so I was just going to say December 21st. But I'm supportive of this and with the extension towards the end of the year.
I'd love to not meet on the 21st if we didn't have to.
I would just say logistically, if your hope is to have something to you by that December 21st meeting, you're going to need the recommendation from them a little bit before that.
Yes.
You know, if you're getting that specific with dates, because having them make the recommendation up to the date where you'd want to be considering it isn't going to work
And then
real well.
public hearing and then actually adopting it, yes, I agree, but, yeah,
We'll have it by the end of the year, if not before.
by the end of the year, and I was just going to say the date I would suggest would be the 21st rather than the 31st, so.
Jackie?
And another date that I think is important for us to consider is when we believe we'll be in a position to be able to offer city residents the benefits of the attainable housing tool. Can anyone give me guidance on that? I mean, this to me is a signal of prioritization from the city commission to the planning commission. So I remain flexible on specific dates, but I would kind of hate to see us being ready to go with the attainable housing tool and not have finished our work on the ADU regulations themselves.
You can add to that.
I can't really give you an estimate right now. We're just diving into it in my office, so maybe I can follow up in a couple of weeks with you.
Okay, maybe what we do then is take the approach that Ken was headed toward, which is to sort of back into it to say if we'd like to, you know, have this, you know, through the city commission action before the end of 2026, that then maybe we aim for December 1st or something like that.
There's potential for that. Lance, did you want to speak first before we pick on that?
I'm not opposed to it. I was just going to make comment that the reality is, you know, these plans for a normal person can cost $30,000 to $40,000 just to have created. And then you've got the gamble of not getting approved and not actually getting, maybe you need a slight variance or something, and then you're not approved, right? So that is a significant burden, almost 10, 15% off of the actual cost of one of these type of units. So this will hopefully allow for more development in the city and quiet development, right? Not just development for development's sake, but like, you know, being able to build a property on your long lot and do it at a better rate that makes sense financially, where we can actually add incremental housing without adding to the footprint.
Yeah, just to throw in really quick, I agree that I'd love to see it happen as quickly as possible. Our attainable housing, though, what is being worked on might be done well before even the planning commission could put something together. And so while I want it to be as close as possible, I don't want us to be trying to tie bar them too much, because also by the time it gets through and it comes out, there might be people already applying because they're like, I've got this place, I already know what I want to start working on. And this helps with ADUs, but the attainable housing can also be a $5,000 change to an already existing duplex or something. So I agree, and I appreciate the sentiment, and I do want us to see this urgency a little bit behind it, like you're talking about, Jackie, but I don't want us to get too much to tying it to just ADUs, because I think that we could trip over ourselves in that sense. And also, I want everyone out there to know that this applies to ADUs and improvements on our existing structures. So please, if you're already thinking about it, please, 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 once we're ready, just jump on it. So, yes, but I appreciate your point on that. Lance, you had your hand up?
I was just going to say, I'm sure the city manager has heard us loud and clear on the direction.
Yeah, Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow up on Lance's comment about quiet infill and how much, and the cost of plans. I see this as a great tool for garage conversions. I think we've got a huge, we've got so many garages out there that aren't even being used, really. They're full of junk. And garages are mostly the same size. You know, you have a single garage and you have a double garage. But to sit down and try and figure out how to put your bathroom in there, most people don't know how to do that, and they have to pay for it. So this would help a lot with that.
Great. So we have the motion to, oh, go ahead.
I was just to kind of balance what Commissioner Anderson had said and what Mayor Shamro had said, we are mildly getting into the weeds. I'd love to have a date as soon as possible. Sounds great. By the end of the year, sounds great. Because I don't want to dictate the planning department and the planning commission's times. I think we might be overstepping a touch with that, but we obviously have made our concern known that urgency is a key priority here, so.
I would join you in that, Ken, in saying we're giving them till that date, but hey, if they're ready to go and bring it to us sooner, we're
Fire.
more than happy to take it sooner, so absolutely. All right, any final comments here? Any public comment on this?
Patty, my name's Ross Hammersley. I'm a city resident. We live at 400 Buffy Street. I also happen to be the city attorney for the city of Frankfurt, and we have passed both the Residential Housing Facilities Act ordinance as well as an Attainable Housing Facilities Act ordinance, and have been implementing those for the last year and a half. What I would say is, just briefly, is that part of the process that the statute provides is that the homeowners have to get their plans approved, and then it's going to come back to you all, actually, as the governing body of the municipality, to approve the exemption from the tax that they're supposed to get as part of the statutory process that is involved. So it has to come back to you, and then that whole packet has to get sent to the state tax commission. So I'm not trying to be discouraging at all, but my guess would be that that's not a likely process that's going to complete itself by the end of this year for too many homeowners in Traverse City, and it's probably more likely to be something that you're going to be setting up for a really banner year in 2027 rather than in the rest of this year. So that's my only 2 cents.
Thank you, Ross.
This implementation.
Any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Jackie?
Just then, to be sure, if I can restate based on that last public comment, it sounds as though availability of the pre-approved plans actually is part of the critical path
It can
for
be, yeah.
approvals.
For
Is that the way-
something
am
like an
I-
ADU,
Others
yes.
interpreting that the
It'll
same
definitely
way?
be.
ADU, not a home.
Right,
Right.
right.
So somebody just making, repairing a kitchen to upgrade it and put it forward will still have to submit their plans, but they wouldn't need this design, so yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so there is an element of urgency.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Ken?
But a pre-approved plan from the city that an applicant, that a resident
Yes.
submits to the city to apply for streamlines that process, right?
For an ADU,
Boom,
yes.
right to the state tax
Exactly.
jurisdiction.
Hence the
council.
priority.
Yes. Yep,
So-
definitely. All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Look forward to seeing that coming from the Planning Commission. Glad to hear you guys are already jumping on it tomorrow night, so thank you for that. Okay, moving on to reports. Anybody have reports from their respective boards? Laura, and then we'll go online.
Yeah, there's a report, an annual report from the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee in your packet. That's something that the advisory committee, when it was first reconvened a year and a half ago, was really clear about wanting to accomplish, and so that report is in your packet. The committee is great. It has all of the stakeholders around the table every month with near perfect attendance, and the collaborative effort, I think, is proof in what we're seeing in terms of a change in delivery model.
Great. Others?
Yeah, me.
Heather, go ahead.
Yeah, I read that report, and it is a clear and comprehensive document of the history, performance, and use of funds and programming and priorities into the next year. It's a great document. Thank you very much, Hickory Hills Advisory Board. I just want to mention that I went to the Coast Guard changing of the guard, as Amy called it.
Yes.
Commander Hahn
Yes.
flew in on his helicopter, accompanied by the incoming Commander Lee, and that is how the change happens. There was a brass band. There were probably 300 people there. It was terrific. I highly recommend it in 2 years. Commander Lee and her wife and their dog all live in Traverse City, and welcome and congratulations.
Yes, thanks for representing us there, Heather. That's very appreciated. Mitch, did you have your hand up?
Yes, don't normally have reports from the Grand Traverse Common Joint Planning Authority, but after the Garfield Township Board has opted to close a section of Red Drive, that's a dirt road outside the city limits, to vehicular traffic, there are a number of discussions going on about changing many of the private or patchwork ownership roads through the Grand Traverse Commons into ultimately a public ownership scheme, which could involve the city taking ownership of part of Cottage View Drive and other streets in that area. But
there's a lot of
Preliminary
complexity
discussion.
there.
Preliminary discussion is what I'm hearing.
It's very preliminary.
Very,
But it's something that, if it advances, will come to this board for discussion.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Any other reports? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. We have a reserved public comment for Willard. I'm going to say Kylie. I might be wrong, so please feel free to correct me and approach the podium. You have 15 minutes once you get up there and get settled.
Hello, good evening, greetings. Lovely evening. A little smoky out there, but we're moving on. I'd like to start with, there is no gap between my mind and yours, and only minds can unite in truth. And there's a law that governs choice. And that law is set. And there can only be two choices. One is a truth, and the other is an illusion. And there can't be a range of limitless choices, so you'd have to find one and then get to that one, and well, that one worked when all the others have failed. Where the truth is simple, anything complicated is typically of the ego, and which is based in an illusion, in an illusory judgment. And then the range that is set, there's no compromise. Each choice that you ask for brings you everything of what you believe, whether it's the illusion or it's the truth. And minds cannot unite in dreams. They can only bargain. I've read that the possible root of the creation of this reality was based on the mad idea in heaven of compromise. And no one laughed, because it's a mad idea, it's an insane idea. Typically, apparently, they would laugh in heaven. They didn't laugh, gave rise to this reality where we believe we're separate from each other. We're in bodies. I give us that. You're over there, I'm over here. Only bodies can attack. You can never attack another mind. And bodies can be destroyed. And it's clearly evident that bodies can attack each other, and that they can be destroyed. So if it can be destroyed, then it's not real. It's not eternal. Time cannot contain eternity in the sense of what is eternal has no death. So death is an illusion as well. But if we want to get into like the concept of loss and gain, there is no gain in loss, and that's where the ego likes to negotiate to tell you that you're going to lose, you're going to have enough pain, whatever that phrase was, enough pain to get to the gain or whatever it was. I've heard it all over the media as well. But it's a mad idea. So in the Bible, it spoke of that Adam fell asleep, and nowhere does it ever say he woke up. So we're all probably descended from that point. So we're still in a dream state. So all we can do is compromise with each other, where one gains and another loses. And that's not a very enjoyable reality. However, our choice is simple. We can choose the truth, which is be a benefit to all of us. And I got some stuff going on. So there's a concept about learning. Learning is invisible. And I could make a case that I think we've been taught badly. And we're defending those beliefs that we've been taught to the nth degree. There was no willing to, I guess apparently at some point there is a threshold of pain that you can handle. And then you will have to say, man, there's got to be another way. There's got to be a better choice. Maybe let's choose love, which extends gratitude, forgiveness. I love the phrase, Forgiveness is the fragrance a rose emits when it's crushed underfoot. And I've definitely been crushed underfoot. In this town of 4.5 years homelessness, I've spoken to the board many times. The Goodwill Inn, Safe Harbor, Jubilee House, all these churches. It's not effective, it's not working. They don't end homelessness, they promote it, they create it, they gather people, they bring them here. And it's a simple solution. And no one would, no one has difficulty making up his mind to let a simple problem be resolved if it is seen to hurt him and also very easily removed. But you don't see that it hurts you because you perceive others as separate from you, in the sense that whatever you deny me, you deny yourself. Whatever you take from me, you take from yourself. There'll be nothing left. So there's a thing called where you join together. Minds joined can only join in the truth. So I'd like to cover some issues related to the millage, whatever they're talking about, asking for more money. The Goodwill Inn and the street outreach, and then whatever the task force. But I looked at the numbers. There's 168 homeless is the average numbers for the homeless. 500,000 a year right now is the IRS information about Safe Harbor. Goodwill Inn is astronomically at $35 million in 2023. Back in 2011, they started at $9 million, so their assets have grown 209% since 2011 to 2023. And then Safe Harbor's assets have grown an incredible 2,149% since about the same range, 2014 to 2023. And they sell these 7,000 bed nights and all these individuals. There's about 180-something people listed for their homelessness at the Goodwill Inn. We're talking $35 million, and you can't end homelessness. The numbers that I've talked about before, they get $126 per person per day from the federal government. They're only allowed to stay there for, I think it's 10 months. You can't be there the full year, whatever that is. So that's about $50,000 a year. The total time I've been held captive or in the experiment is about $200,000. And guaranteed that I wouldn't be homeless if I had that kind of revenue to support myself. And even some solutions, basically, you can 3D print a house for $3,000, and then you can get an electric bicycle for $1,000. I mean, that would solve the problem. You could build houses or build like some kind of shelter similar to a storage unit in like a parking garage, where you just need a key with a door to have things accessible to yourself, and not in some like a gulag setting where you're forced to leave and go walk the streets and figure out how to deal with your day while they get paid, you stay alive. That's like gulag. That's what even Stephen Miller was in the news saying that's what they're going to create, is a gulag to punish whatever they want to punish. But you're only punishing yourself in the sense of that doesn't work. So they got plenty of money. They have 389 employees, right? So they got way more employees than they even got guests. And they just circle them in and out. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that they claim that they need more money and that the problem is so easily solved. But it's not solved if you view it as separate, or you want to, they character assail the homeless as well. They say they're alcoholics, substance abusers, mentally ill, murderers, with a guy on the lake that was killed, that I believe he was on his way to report a guy that was underage that was staying at the Goodwill Inn, that he was a fraud, whatever, and like all this weirdness that they do this with this trafficking and people from all over the place. I'd also like to mention I've had 3 instances when I was homeless that they spoke about contracts that they had signed. One was Brandon Sang. He runs, I think he's still there. I haven't seen him in years, but I haven't been in that network. He runs the food rescue. Was working his way up to, he said he wanted to run the whole program. But he said at one point, I started a bakery while I was at the homeless shelter. I rented the commercial kitchen from the Goodwill Inn. And then I started all this out. It was in the middle of Cherry Fest. So it was very hard to be a new account for a business to come in. So it was pretty difficult for me to get the thing rolling. So my motorcycle, all this stuff. So he said, I could tell you exactly what to do to be a success, but it violates my contract with the Goodwill Inn. I'm like, well, tell me something. Give me something. So I'm like, what was his contract? And then there's another employee that is now comes to my work that I've seen that she used to exit me all the time and all this weirdness that they go on we don't need to get into. But she even said that there was a contract that she had to sign that they couldn't speak to any Goodwill guests for 3 years after their termination or even after that person had left homelessness. They were banned from even speaking to them. They couldn't associate with them. They literally had to walk the other way. And it was weird. But now she talks to me and says how sorry she is and all this weird whatever stuff. And then there was another homeless man himself, really intoxicated, and let it out and said, we was having all these issues. And then he said, I wish I'd have never signed that contract with Ryan Hannon. So what are these contracts? You know, it sounds like some kind of a secret society, whatever, the vow of silence. And, you know, you look at this, whatever the oldest religion on the planet is, the Luciferian, whatever it is. And they have the thing where they cover the eye. They do the thing over this, which is 666. And then they do the thing of this, the vow of silence. They can't talk. If you speak out about it, you'll be killed and all this weird stuff. And then, so then you're like, okay, this is very odd. What's going on with this contract? Why can't they help you? Why can't they do anything? So there's something going on. And then you look at the logo of the Goodwill Inn, and they got like this one eye thing going on with that. You know, I don't know. And then I looked up into the records and found that the Goodwill Inn did a name change. It used to be Asgard Industries. The original Articles of Incorporation, 1972, Asgard Industries. Asgard is like Thor, right? The Thor, the mythological dudes. And then it changed subsequently to Asgard Goodwill Industries, and then here with blah, 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 in 1993, they changed it to Goodwill Industries of Northern Michigan Incorporated, and here to attach to whatever, all this stuff. So, I mean, there's some weird stuff going on. I've looked even further in there. There's one business dealing called with the Evil Queen, and it's like a foreign LLC out of California, but she's somehow linked to the candle factory that's gone. I don't know. And so there's some weird stuff going on. There's some other stuff with the Illinois. There's like the property dealings and who owns the property there out of Illinois and Chicago. So, you know, out-of-state stuff. It just doesn't make any sense that all this money's going all around. Their Goodwill's all over the place. And then you got Jeff Bezos gave Goodwill in, or his ex-wife, blinking her name right now. She gave, after her divorce, she gave the Goodwill in $50 billion. The local one here got $5 million. So I spoke out about this at the last, right after COVID. They're coming in for the ARPA funds. They were asking for $800,000 in ARPA funds. I came and presented, you know, information like this, and then they gave them $400,000. So I'm like, well, at least they stopped them a little bit. So, and then you kind of look at the pattern, like, all right, well, then Bezos, what's Bezos doing? Well, he's part of the whole Trump techno whatever thing, take over the government, and now they're making shadow websites and all this stuff. And you just kind of wonder, like, what is going on? But I pointed out, even Dan Buron was on the news saying, with this $5 million, we're going to be able to end homelessness for so many people. This is going to be fantastic. They didn't do any of it. So they scoffed at me during the meeting when I presented this. Then had Ryan Hannon come up and present, and they said, what did you do with the $5 million? He said, well, $2 million went to the food rescue and our trucks and this and Matt and maintenance, all this. And so, you know, where all this money's going around, and it's a simple solution. But you got to kind of have some mercy for other people, and some compassion and forgiveness and grace and gentleness. The waves at the beach bow at your feet. You know, the trees extend their arms out to provide you shade from the heat. You know, they drop their leaves so it softens your walk on the earth. And the snow is like, you do not have a life. You are literally life itself. Every living thing is part of you. Like, that is impressive. But we're here acting as if we're all separate and going our separate ways, living our separate lives. We're all this individual and justify all. And then the majority of people I've spoken to while I was homeless, they're like, oh, everything's corrupt. I'm like, well, that's not the answer. You can't just keep saying that's the answer. So, like the gentleness, the heartbeat, you know, like it's very interesting view to, if you identify with the body, you're identifying with the ego, and then ego is like, you know, he wants to destroy you. The basis of the ego is like these real dark back corner things that it doesn't understand the Son of God. It's afraid of him, so he wants to destroy him. So that's the kind of the MO for the ego, is to destroy. And not only does it want to do that, it wants to destroy you because it doesn't want it to be exposed that the whole thought system is based on an illusion. And you know, it's not based on love, and love is everything. God is invisible. Learning is invisible. When you learn something, it's invisible. It's nothing you can, it's not tangible. Truth is invisible, but it's everywhere. It's in the space between us that we think is their space. It's the truth. And it comes willingly as soon as you surrender your judgment. And judgment leads to condemnation. And condemnation, judgment is, you can't judge. You don't know all the facts. Like, there's no way that I could judge any one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your
You're
thoughts
welcome.
and perspective, Willard. We appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. My pleasure.
I'll let you collect your stuff there.
Yeah, if I got it all organized, it'd be even better, but we're there. Thank
We
you.
know how that goes.
Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, you too. All right, now we will open this up for general public comment. So this is the normal 3 minutes.
Justin Reed. Yes, so I live in the Commons, and I know that part of the master plan was to make making private utility into public utility, and that would be converting the private streets to public streets. I know that John Hughes wrote a letter to the Joint Planning Commission meeting about how the Village Association does not have money to repair the roads. Simply the fact that for, part of the process of that development of the property was a master plan, right, and a Joint Planning Commission to go ahead and execute to having that private relationship into a public relationship. I can't go ahead and say, 16 years ago, I can't hold the city commission to that. However, there needs to be, like it was said, that there's going to have to be a point of discussion to where there's going to have to meet the road to the rubber on getting this done. It's not all of the stakeholders in this situation have the money to go ahead and keep maintaining the roads, the private roads in the Commons. And also last commission meeting that you had, as far as the study session goes, is you were talking about the plowing. An example is Marquette. Marquette has a 5-year capital improvement project that is involved with their plowing, and also a heavy ordinance on fines. So, I hate this, but comparing sometimes to state and local things. Now, you can think out of the box. That's great. But there's a difference between city ordinances in Michigan, and there's also differences in how states operate, because not everybody else has the same setup. Every state is different. So, thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other public comment tonight? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back and wish you all a wonderful evening. And with that, we will close the meeting. I said evening and not meeting twice, right? I saw my brain went a little fuzzy for a second there.